everybody, and welcome to another episode of Out of the Vault. If you need to catch up, please take a look at the playlist provided below. So for September of 2014, we are going to take a look at Disney's 26th animated classic from 1986. A very interesting time in Disney's history when Disney was pretty much on the verge of bankruptcy, and they were actually being upstaged by the former Disney animator and creator Don Bluth, because he was bringing out a very different kind of animated film, something more darker and something more for a general and mature audience. Movies like Secret of NIMH, American Tail, and The Land Before Time. So Disney was somewhere down in the dumps, and they had to try and compete. So they gave us The Great Mouse Detective, a story, of course, based on a book, but also a basis on Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes character, and it involves a mouse named Basil of Baker Street, the Great Mouse Detective, and it's the story of his first case with his associate, Dr. Dawson, who of course is a take on Dr. Watson, and it's all about them trying to solve the mystery of a young girl named Olivia whose father was taken away by Basil's greatest enemy, Professor Ratigan. Now, here's a couple of things that I have to say about The Great Mouse Detective. A lot of people really don't like it. Maybe it's just because of the fact that it is a little bit too real and it doesn't really feel like a Disney classic, because it really doesn't have the magic. It's very gritty, very dark, very real to a certain extent, but it does have a little bit of Disney charm. I, for one, saw it a couple of years ago, I think when I was in my, I don't know, maybe 10 or 11, and I did remember liking it, but not loving it. But seeing it now, I really had fun with this movie, very similarly to the way I felt about Robin Hood. It's a very good, very deep story. I really like the chemistry of the characters. The voices, you have the great Vincent Price voicing the villain Ratigan, and he is just one of those, not scary evil, even though he does have some scary moments, but he's one of those sort of like Mark Hamill's Joker in Batman the Animated Series. You just have this grin across your face when you see his delivery and you see him on screen, and just how fun he is to watch being so evil. And of course you actually have someone who ended up being a very big name in the Disney family, Alan Young, voicing Olivia's father, and he went on to voice Scrooge McDuck in one of the greatest Disney television shows of all time, DuckTales. In regards to the story itself, it's definitely a step above the usual Disney film in terms of the theme. I mean, it's a movie that involves a lot of things that you really don't want children to see. You see a lot of characters imbibing alcohol, smoking cigarettes, and also dealing with weapons, and possibly even going after one another with fists or trying to kill one another. So it's got a lot of mature themes, even though it is a rated G movie, because they're not really used to that certain degree. But the fact that all of this is present really makes you look at this film and say, wow, this just does not feel like a Disney movie. Another interesting gripe that I may have with this movie is just that the animation, you could definitely tell that Disney was in jeopardy at the time, because there are points in time where the animation just seems very gritty, and you can still sometimes see the rough pencil sketches, but then when you see the final battle between Ratigan and Basil and Big Ben, you see this revolutionary early CGI gear work within the clock, and it just adds a whole new perspective to where animation was going, especially for the time like 1986. You don't get much of the Disney songs, although I absolutely loved the Ratigan theme song, because not only is it a great song about a villain that goes up there with songs like Be Prepared or Like Gaston, but it's not just a song about Ratigan, it's also about the fact that he and Basil have been at each other's throats for a long time, and it gives a little bit of a backstory of just how evil he is and how many times he's outsmarted Basil and outrun him, and Basil has just been trying so hard, going crazy because he just can't be able to catch him. Basil's a phenomenal character, so full of humor and wit, and you absolutely get blown away by how he manages to be so clever and so quick at the perfect moment. Dawson's a fun-loving character, as is Olivia, and of course, Toby, their trusted scent hound, he's just fun to watch. That's where the Disney magic really is, in Toby. All of the looks of happiness and joy and his sense for adventure. It's just a perfect, fun, adventurous film. And a lot of people, when it comes to the post-Disney era, up until the time when we got the Disney Renaissance, these are movies that are usually hit or miss by some, but movies like Robin Hood and movies like The Great Mouse Detective and others that I haven't seen yet for this show, like one of my personal favorites, which I'm very excited to see soon, is The Rescuers. I just appreciate the realism and the fact that Disney was willing to actually go in this direction, to make topics a little bit more like that, and try to really step themselves up in terms of theme and storytelling. Not just Disney princesses anymore, you know what I mean? But it was fun. It's not the greatest Disney classic, but The Great Mouse Detective is fun. And I really want to see it again. That's one of the few things that I didn't say about any of these Disney classics. Maybe Wreck-It Ralph or Fantasia, but no, I don't own this one, but I want to see it again because I just had so much fun watching it. Not the best, but fun. So I am going to give The Great Mouse Detective 3 out of 4. Throw your comments in the box below. I get some great feedback from you guys about Disney films. I'm really curious about this classic in general. There's someone that I have been following, and she's been commenting very recently. Her name is Rachel, and I'll put a link to her channel below. She's actually watching all of these Disney classics for herself, and she's watching them a lot faster than I am. She actually is up to The Great Mouse Detective. Chances are when I post this, she will have seen it, but she has watched all the Disney classics from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs up until The Black Cauldron up until this point. So I will put a link to this blog below. It's a really good blog. I highly recommend that you look at this because you will probably see some statements on Disney films that you may not have seen. And I am really curious to see what she and some of my other followers would have to say about this specific movie, because Rachel in particular has not really said good things about these specific realistic Disney-themed movies. So that's my take on The Great Mouse Detective, and thank you guys for watching. I'm looking forward to October for another Out of the Vault, and actions speak louder than words.